So, continuing from the last video, this is another, shall we say, interesting article from the New Statesman. Now, this is sort of a different slant on things, but I think he makes some valuable points. So, Ricky Gervais has gone on the offensive. Oh, and I'll leave a link to it down below as well. So, not in his usual manner, calling people mongs, doubling down on his transphobia by comparing trans people to chimps in his latest stand-up special, or by fostering the invention of lying on an unsuspecting public. This time he's thrown his considerable heft behind a gent who goes by the name of Count Dankula. In the likely event you don't know who Mr. Dankula is, he is a self-confessed shitposter whose hobby is posting videos filmed in his bedroom on YouTube with titles such as Give Minorities All Your Money, Eating Ice Cream is Gay, and Snapchatting Your Balls to a live streamer. Count Dankula's stock in trade is point missing whataboutery, finding the extremes of an otherwise reasonable view to try and discredit it, and generally being the guy you get stuck next to at a student party who has some views on veganism that would blow your tiny provincial mind. Dankula came to the attention of more than just his 130,000 YouTube subscribers recently by being found guilty of breaching section 127 of the 2003 UK Communications Act, which prohibits grossly offensive, indecent, obscene or menacing electronic communications. He did this by repeatedly saying, "Want to gas the Jews," to his girlfriend's dog, making it watch Hitler rallies and trying to teach it to perform a Nazi salute. All the relevant information on this case was viewed by the court, the evidence standard was deemed to have met, and the verdict was given. He is due to be sentenced in April with a maximum sentence of 6 months theoretically possible, although extremely unlikely for a first offence. People have leapt to Dankula's defence for the defence of free speech. These have included Katie Hopkins, who described migrants as cockroaches, snake oil salesman and Alex Jones glove puppet Paul Joseph Watson, and convicted criminal Toby Robinson, whose hobbies included punching migrants. Milo Yiannopoulos, who no doubt will be supporting him on Twitter too, had he not been thrown off for expressing grossly offensive views. These people and their supporters have very specific targets for their own open, frank discussions. Jews, immigrants, Muslims, trans people, etc. Odd that they never want to discuss the morality and the morality of corporate tax fraud, republicanism, institutional misogyny, etc., etc. And joining them is, of course, Ricky Gervais. Other comics have criticised the ruling, saying comedians should be allowed to tell whatever jokes they want to without fear of persecution, saying "want to gas the Jews" 23 times may be one of those jokes and loses something in the telling. Either way, the cases thrown together strange bedfellows and a swingers party on the island of Dr. Moreau. Fans of offensive comedy worry that this verdict will set a precedent that will rob them of their source of entertainment. They also seem willing to set aside the content of what the comedy is being offensive about, or how or why. This is the equivalent of drinking to get drunk and not caring how foul or revolting the booze is, so long as it gets you there. If you watch comedy to be shocked, a taser gun is far more effective and has never made light of the Holocaust. The problem with this kind of fellowship is that it presumes everyone is playing the same sport. Otherwise, reasonable writers and comedians condemning this law, the true target of their condemnation, Surely, rather than the verdict, the court is simply enforcing that law. And neither are useful idiots, but dim light could be mistaken for both. To follow this sport analogy, they want Dankula to be able to use the same boxing ring as they do. The difference is they feel he is doing the same kind of sparring as they are, when in fact he is figuratively kicking a cat to death, setting fire to it and making idiots smirk. Also, the freedom to joke has not been placed under any jeopardy. The lack of freedom to broadcast grossly offensive material, a law that has existed for 15 years without comedy ceasing to exist, has been enforced. If the 2003 Act is such a threat to freedom of speech, it has been remarkably slow getting there. If Ricky Gervais is really a fan of free speech, maybe he should stop blocking Twitter users who criticise him or retweet posts that do anything other than shower him with praise. And if Count Dankula wants to continue in his career as a shitposter, he needs to accept that posting shit sometimes gets your hands dirty. And he's got a point. That's the thing. This law has been around for a while. These guys who've been claiming, oh, it's the end of free speech, it's the end of offensive comedy. This guy was just the first to be sentenced by this. He wasn't sentenced for anything else. He was saying it because he was saying that one phrase 23 times in a grossly offensive manner. You know, that was the law. He's been taken to it. And as it says at the end, look, maybe, you know, he went too far this time. If he wants to be a shit poster, then you have to accept that posting shit will get your hands dirty. And in this case, his hands are far from clean.